lie down on your back, variations in hip. Hopefully this will help loosen up your hip. Okay, put both feet standing. Before you do that, lay down, legs straight, arms beside you. Just notice the position on the floor, how you're lying there, direction of your heels, feet in, feet out, your calves. Just slowly go through your system just to understand or get an idea of how you're lying on the floor now. Your knees, the gap behind your knees and your thighs, and your butt on the floor, the gap in your lower back, how your upper back is, your middle and upper back is sitting on the floor, and your shoulders, there's one higher than the other, the gap behind your neck, and how's your head lying? Is it lying to the left or to the right? It doesn't hurt to give it a little roll, see how it's moving. And notice how your hands are lying on the floor. You might be lying with them flat, your palms up or the palms to the side. Everyone's a little different. And also just take a second to notice your hip, or see if you can tell where your hip is. Not your pelvis, but your hip itself. Okay, legs standing, or feet standing, sorry. Somewhere comfortable so that they're sitting by themselves, and gravity's holding them up. And just raise your right knee towards your head. And then back down, just up and down, without putting it back on the ground. Just find somewhere it's comfortable to hold it up, somewhere easy, and just move it small amount backwards and forwards. So you might find it's more comfortable to keep the knee higher, or you might find it's more comfortable to keep it lower. Doesn't matter. Just figure out where it's easier for you, just to move it up and down. That's all you're doing. Just find a spot that makes it easy. And then maybe try doing that about 20 times. Just up and down. Nice and soft. Nice and easy. No rush. You can even do really, really tiny movements with this. The thing about doing these is remember they're not exercises. It's awareness through movement. So you're trying to figure out what's happening. So can you do this without tensing your tummy? Can you do this without tensing your jaw? Keeping your jaw relaxed, your neck relaxed, without too much effort on your tummy. Now notice as you're doing this what your foot's doing. Some people let the foot hang down, some people hold the foot up. Everyone's a little different. So what I would like you to do now is, as you're bringing the knee towards your head, bring your toes up as well. And then as your knee goes down, take your foot down. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge movement. And you're trying to do it without force, because too much movement on the foot will change the direction of the knee movement. Again, just nice and slowly, nice and soft, because you're trying to notice what changes in your hip when you do this. How is this different to just raising and lowering your knee? How does this affect your back? And again, can you do it without huge effort in your belly? Keeping your breathing smooth, jaw relaxed. Now, and of course, as you're going through these, if you need to rest in between, just stop and rest. Don't keep going. It's not about endurance either. It's about doing them all, doing the motions, doing the movement in a way that is easy and relaxed. So just take a break when you need it. So now try it. Again, just take a break. Just put your foot down. Take a few seconds out. And again, these breaks are sometimes not really about resting, but more about giving your brain a chance to differentiate between what's happening, give it a chance to ruminate, as it were. Okay, lift your leg back up again. Now this time, as you take your knee back, point your toe down. So the opposite of what you were just doing. As the knee comes down, point the toe up. And again, look at about 20, 25 movements of this. And again, try not to use too much force here, because again, the force will cause the knee to move in a different way. You just want to keep the knee moving nice and easy. And again, notice how the knee actually moves. Is your knee moving more to the outside? Is it moving more to the centre, up and down? Is it moving around? So everybody's knee will move in a different way as well. It's just interesting to note that, which way your knee is actually moving. Okay, and put your foot down and take a rest. You might want to put your legs out straight for a second and just notice if there's anything different from when you first started. Is there a little change in the way your back lies on the floor, or put your hands down beside you. Notice if there's a change in the way your feet sit on the floor, your heels. You might find that the right hip is getting a bit lighter compared to the left hip. Anyway, bring your feet back to standing. Raise your knee up to a place that's comfortable. And now this time, move your knee in a circle, but a horizontal circle, so your knee stays in the same plane. It does a circle in that point. It doesn't matter which way. And the number you're looking for, again, is about 20, 25 moves. Nice and easy. And you can do really tiny circles. They don't have to be huge. Little small circles are fine. Again, you're not looking for an exercise here. You're looking to see what happens. You're looking to understand how this moves. And give your brain a chance to feel the moves in different ways. And when you've done 20 or 25 one way, put your foot down for a couple of seconds. Then take it back up and circle in the opposite direction. And notice what happens with your foot when you do this. Notice the feeling inside your pelvis. Are you using a lot of ab energy, stress to do this? Which way is your foot going as your leg goes around? Is your foot staying with your knee? Is it going the opposite to your knee? It doesn't matter which way it's going, it's just notice what it's doing. Notice which way it's going. And just put your foot down, take a rest. If you want, you can slide your feet down and just notice if there's a little bit of difference. Is there a difference between your right hip now and your left? Is your right hip lying differently on the floor? This is good for opening up your hips for running, loosening them up for any type of exercise. All these movements, you can break them down to which ones work well for you. You want to use them for warm-ups. Okay, bring your feet back up to standing. Raise your right knee. And this time do the circle with your heel. but again, in the horizontal plane. So not your foot, but your heel. That's it. So make a circle with your heel and see if you can keep it in the horizontal plane. Notice the movement of your knee and how this moving with the heel moves the hip differently inside the pelvis. Notice how your pelvis and hip are moving differently than when your knee was circling. And then go with the other way. It's a little bit more strenuous doing this way, but it's very hard to keep in that horizontal plane. And it doesn't matter. It's more about the intent. It's not necessarily that you actually get these moves. It's just the intent. And the noticing of what's happening in your hip, how your knee's moving differently, how your hip's moving differently than when your knee moved. And just so you can get an understanding of that, try moving your knee in the circle a few times and notice the difference than when you move your than when you move your heel. It's just a little different. Alright, put your heel down, take a rest. Again, all of these can be done with really tiny movements. It's not necessarily to do them in large movements, and it's not necessary to do 20 or 25. You can do 3 or 4. It does not matter how many you do, as long as you're keeping the movements comfortable and easy. So this time, keeping your foot essentially on the floor, move your foot in a circle along the floor. You can notice how this movement, you're still moving in a circle, but notice how the movement in the hip is different. Notice the effect on your hip is different than the other ways. What about the effect on your back? Is your breathing still even and smooth? Keeping the pressure minimum on your stomach and pelvis. And you've done your 25 with that. Try 25 in the opposite direction. Nice and smooth. And as I say, notice how this movement affects the movement in your pelvis. Which way does your knee go compared to when you were just doing the heel? Is it different? Is this movement different than what you were doing? Just remember these movements are all gluten-free, fat-free. No animals other than Shion were harmed in the making of the video. Alright, take a rest, lay your feet out. Is there a change with how your feet are lying on the floor? How your back is, pelvis? Is there a change? It doesn't matter whether you think, it's not a matter of looking for whether or not the changes are positive or negative as such. It's just to notice that there's a bit of change. Something's different. Might be your lower